In the second part of module 3, we will talk about functions here. Okay? Alright, so yesterday we created module 3. We talked about decision making and loops. I'm going to create a new module here, that is a PyDev module without any package, and I will call it functions. Okay, fine. So a little bit of background about functions. In any programming language, you might require to call a certain set of lines again and again, right? For example, I need to add two numbers. Okay, so I need to add two numbers and I also need to print something about the operation. So say this first number 1, which is 10, number 2, which is 18, and then what I need to do is I need to print the sum of two numbers is num1 plus num2. Okay, so basically I am carrying out an operation, say num3, which is num1 plus num2. Okay, and I'm here writing num3. Okay, so you understand what is happening here. Two numbers are taken, the operation of addition is done on the number, and then the sum is printed out. Correct? Now suppose I need to do the same operation again, but with different number. So num4, the value is 5, num5, the value is 9, num6 is the addition of num4 plus num5, and then I print the next line. I print the sum of two numbers is num6. So you see over here only the values are changing, variables are changing, the operation is same, and the print message is same. So here also, right? So as the numbers go on increasing, okay, we are going to actually copy the same code and keep replicating it with different values, different variable names, etc. But the function is pretty much the same. How about we create this block? Okay, this is the repeating block, right? This is the repeating block. So the repeating block, if we take this sequence of statements and we give it a name. Okay, let's just execute this first. So it is expecting a string here, must be string, not integer. I can convert it. So these are conversion functions because I'm outputting in a string format. I'm trying to concatenate it. Okay. So each block I can give it a name. So what I do is I create a function. To create a function, you have this keyword called def and name of the function. So name of function, which could be anything. Over here it could be sum of two numbers, right? Sum of two nums. Okay, that's the name of the function, and it ends with a colon here, and then you write something, some logic here, which is nothing but the same block. If you haven't yet decided, you can just give it a pass. It's like a stub. Okay, so this is the function. It has no instructions, no statements inside it. That is why we use pass. But now we know what this function is doing. It is going to sum the two numbers. So I'm going to write this here. Okay, now let me comment this out. Sorry. Okay, so this is a function. The name of the function is sum of two nums, and there are two numbers variables inside the function which adds into num3, and then I'm printing out the sum here. Okay, now how do I execute it? How you have to call the function. This is just a function definition here. This is a declaration, this is definition, but we are not calling function anywhere. So what we do is we need to make a call to the function. The call to the function is done by the name of the function. So I call this function here like this, which means that when this statement is encountered, it will go look for a function of the same name and execute whatever block of code is there within that function. So it's like giving a name to these 4 lines of code and accessing it with its name. Okay, so that we don't have to write the code again and again for each type of different data. Okay, this is basically used for code reusability. Okay, a group of statements, we call it a single entity, we call it a function. Okay, so I'll save it and I'll call. So the sum of two numbers is 28. This is when we are not passing anything to the function. The function directly is called, and whatever is written in the function, it is doing that statement. It is executing those statements. What if we want to pass the two numbers? This is a possibility that we can make another function, sum nums. Here we want to call the function by sum nums name, but we want to give numbers of our choice here. So I want to send number 1 and number 2, and I have the control to choose these numbers. I can change the numbers, right? Correct. So here is the call to the function, and here is the definition of function, but we haven't written anything as yet. So what we do is, now I will show you how we can code for this function here. So there is number 1 and number 2 that it expects as an input from where it is called. So number 1, number 2, or you can give anything like x and y, any variable which can hold the value, right? And what you want to do here is, you have a variable, local variable. Local means something that is the scope of which is inside the function only. So this z variable I have created inside the function, which can be accessed only inside the function, right? So x plus y are being passed, and then I print so instead of z it is instead of num3 it is z here. Okay, and here I need to pass the number. So say I have now the choice to pass whatever number I want. Okay, I'm passing two numbers, 13 and 45. It will go and it will print the sum. This is function 1, this is function 2. Both are defined one after another, and the call to the function is below here. This is the call to the function, right? So first sum of two nums will be called, and then sum nums will be called. This prints 28 and this prints 58, right? I can change the number from here. I can make it just 4, and alright. So this is for the purpose of reusability that we have defined our own function with the keyword def before its name. And the name has to be followed by parenthesis and a colon. So this is called function with parameters. This is called function parameters, and this is without any parameter. Okay. And a function can also return something. Just as we are passing a parameter to the function when we are calling it, similarly the function can also return some value. Okay. For that we will use the keyword return. So I can return z. Whatever is the value, the sum of the two, I can get it as a return value. So I'm just trying to change the function. Instead of printing it here, I will print the value from where I'm making a call to the function, because the function is now returning me z. So when I call this function, I have a return value here. So sum, whatever is returned will be captured in this variable sum, and then I can print sum here. Okay. Right? It's just the same thing, but here I'm showing you how the return value can be printed outside the function, right? We can also directly use the function call here and give it a print, give it under print statement. So whatever is the return type will be printed directly. Okay, 17. Okay, so all of these are different ways of calling the function or writing the function. These are the functions that we are defining, we are creating based on our need. Okay, but there are many functions that are already available. Those are called built-in functions. Okay, they are part of some libraries. Those are called built-in functions. They're already built for us to reuse them, right? Now let's talk about some reusable function and the libraries. Now for example, a very common library could be that helps us manipulate date and time, to work with date and time. So basically when we are recording an event or when we are logging an event into log file, so we need the date and time. Okay, that's a very common and popularly used library. I will just try to take the example from this date and time function in order to demonstrate how to use the built-in functions. Okay, so the library first needs to be imported. Okay, and the keyword that we use to import is import and date time, right? So date time is the library which will allow us to use the date, to work with date and time, to basically when we want to know current date, current time, or date in certain format, this is the library that has the functions in it. Okay, now suppose I want to print today's date. So I can use DateTime dot date, you can view it here, date, and say today's date, right? So I'll say today. Okay, I'll execute it and see this is the date. In this particular format it is printing me today's date. Now as you see that we have imported DateTime, inside which there is date class and then the function. We can have an import until this level also done, for which what we'll do is we'll say, I'll comment it out and I will write it again, from DateTime import date. So now we have imported date until this level, and then why is it showing? Oh, there are two imports. Okay, import date, and over here I will change it to date.today. So I already have it imported until this level, so I don't need to specifically mention DateTime.date, right? Because I have imported this class directly. Once again, the result is the same. The output, as you see, is the date in the same format as above. Okay, now suppose we want to separate, we want to just access the day part of the date. So we have to access some attribute, which is, I can show you that. I'll just copy this again, and once you put a dot, it will give you the attributes here. So there'll be an attribute day, no, not here. Let me just try this day. Okay, so it separates the day part from the date and shows me just the day. Similarly, we can do for year and month. So here I'm going to type month and year. Okay, you see 21/8/2019. This will be handy when we are writing the log files. So the log files, when they are written, the name of the file should carry the timestamp, because that is how those will be identified, those will be uniquely identified. Otherwise there'll be so many logs, if you just create it with a given name, there'll be so many files with the same name. To give it a unique character, we generally timestamp it. So to create a timestamp, we need a date which is unique. So we work with these functions. So the idea is that we can use these already built-in functions by importing those packages, those classes, and accessing the functions within them. Okay, so there are many libraries which will allow you do that. Like, there are libraries for different functions, different functionalities, so you'll have to access them in this manner, right? And whatever is not available, whatever is very specific to your application, you can always create a function like this, as I just showed you above. So this is about reusability via creating functions or using built-in functions from libraries. Okay, so we have one more topic here, global variables and local variables. Let's get to that. I'm going to create another file here and call it So what are local variables and what are global variables? It's an important thing. Okay, so let me create a function here. So there is a function hello, okay, parenthesis and colon, and what it does is it prints hello friend, and currently this much is it. Okay, so when you declare a variable outside a Python function or anything else, that variable is a global variable, which means that it is visible everywhere in the program. For example, now if I create a variable here where var1, or say simple x 10. Now the value of x is 10, and if I have more functions here, let me copy some functions from above. Okay, so there are 3 functions in my file, and x is declared not within any function but outside. So x is globally visible within the program anywhere, right? You can print the value of x from function hello. Okay, you can also print the value of x from function sum of two numbers, right? Let's show you how. I have to make a call to these functions hello and this. Okay, so the first call is to hello. It says hello friend and print me the value of x. Similarly, it goes to the next call. It prints me the sum and the value of x the same, right? So this is what we mean by a global variable. Now if I declare a variable within a function, that will become local to the function, right? Now suppose I have a variable here and I call it x equals 7, right? This is a variable that I have created inside a function. Now this variable is visible only inside the function. It is a coincidence that this name and this name is same, so I can change it to different name just to show you. So it's a local x is a function, is a variable name, and I've given it some value. It is accessible only within this function. Let's see that. So when we call hello, it prints it's in the sum of nums. So it prints first the value of x, that is global, and it prints local x, that is 7. Okay, now if I want to use this variable somewhere in the program, it is declared within the function. It is a local variable to this function. Let's try and use this function outside the function, anywhere in the program. Let's see what it does. Okay, so I've just simply copied it outside and I see a problem here. It says undefined variable local x. Why is it undefined? Because it is locally defined under this function and only visible within this function and not outside. That is why it is showing you an error. If I try to run it, it will say local x is not defined. Okay, because anywhere in the program it is not visible. If you want to make it visible anywhere in the program, then you'll have to use the keyword global. Okay, okay, global will make it visible anywhere. Now you can see that it is not giving you any error, right? Similarly, if you want to change or manipulate the value of any global variable, x is a global variable, right? And x is used here to print. But can you change the value? If you change the value to 10 here, right? So it will say local variable x referenced before assignment. So to change a value which is global, x is a global variable, and locally accessed, but you cannot change the value. To change the value again, you have to give it a global term here. Global keyword you have to use, make it global, and then you can change the value to anything, say 9, right? Okay, so you have to make sure that you use it after global. Global has to be the first thing to use before you use the variable anywhere in the program. Okay, so now you understand that it's only global and local variables talk about their own scope. Where in the program are they visible, or where can you manipulate them, right? That's about global and local variables.